All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo sports talk and more. I'm your host, Patrick Moran. Thank you, as always, for locking in today. Whether you're listening to us on the audio side, whether you're checking us out on YouTube, I appreciate you all. If you haven't subscribed, please make sure you do that. Helps us grow the channel, especially on the YouTube side. I'm joined today, first time in a handful of weeks, a very good friend of mine, the most recurring guest ever in the history of Talking Buffalo, my good friend, noted hockey creator, Joe Yerdon. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
We're doing good, Pat. We're doing good, man. It's a little weird having the team being away. So I haven't been at the rink, haven't been like snooping around and doing
Feel a
that
little
stuff. But
lost?
road trips do that, man. Especially like right before Thanksgiving too. Like I'm just kind of like, what do I do with myself? I don't know. It's weird.
Well, it is very good to have you on. We'll talk some Bills, we can talk some Sabres today. It is Thanksgiving week. Before I forget, while it's fresh in my mind, two things that you kind of, I want to say you put me on to, which is ironic because they're places and things that I've done probably a billion times in my life. But
Mhm.
we talked about not all that long ago. I don't even know if we talked about it on the show. I know we've talked about it on Twitter when I started faking and fronting saying I want to become a soccer fan,
Right.
which I kind of sort of do. Not so even so much because of the sport itself. It might take me years to actually understand the sport. It'll probably take me longer than that to really get to know the teams in the Premier League and especially some of the star players and stuff like that. But what I've been fascinated by over the last year or so is just seeing videos and tweets and photos of soccer fans
hmm
going to bars and going to watch parties
hmm
and just having a really good time. I'm like, I like that. That looks like fun, even if I don't know soccer.
It's your
So
wheelhouse.
I've been half jokingly, going on Twitter and saying, all right, I got to be a soccer fan. And what team should I follow? This and that. Who should I become a fan of? Like kind of giving everyone an opportunity to pitch me, or so to speak.
Right.
Nottingham seems to be the most popular one that I'm hearing. But anyway, regardless of that, a couple weeks ago, I was out with my wife. She had a work uh gathering. They did a bar crawl, her
Okay.
department. They met up on a Saturday afternoon.
hmm
And one of the bars that we hit was the Banshee. And
Nice.
I've been there many, many times before, but
hmm
when it was like Darcy McGee's and
Yep.
a couple other places before that, never says it's been the Banshee. And now that is a big site. You've told me this is a big
hmm
place to go for soccer games. Now,
Yep.
this was a Saturday around dinner time, so there was no soccer going on at the time.
Right.
But just walking around, I felt the vibes instantly, and I could just
Mhm.
tell like this is a really really cool spot. And I just kept looking around. I'm like, man, this would be a really fun place to. And I still haven't been there yet for soccer in the
Yeah.
morning, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, whenever
Mhm.
whenever the games are on, wherever the parties. But yeah, dude, you kind of told me about that spot. It's really cool. I liked the vibes in that a lot.
Yeah, it's one it became really quick one of my favorite places in downtown. Just one of my favorite places in the area, period.
Yeah.
If you're into Premier League soccer at all, like it's the place to go hang out. I know there's a couple other places that are also pretty good to go to, but the vibe in the Banshee when you especially when there's a handful of different teams that are there where like their fan groups are come in, they take over, or they've got they don't take over. I mean, there's a ton of TVs, there's all kinds of
Yeah, yeah,
space
yeah.
out, but when they get in there, it's festive. It is a good time, and it's worth going. It's worth going to hang out on a Saturday or Sunday, Sunday mornings or early afternoons, depending on what time your team's playing or what time the games are at. It can be a little tougher if the games are at 7:30 in the morning. It can be a little bit harder to do, but I don't think. Speaking as somebody who has a team that can play it sometimes at 7:30 in the morning, you don't really want to be getting up.
What's your team? What's your
Uh,
team?
My team's Newcastle United.
Newcastle United.
Been a fan of them for oh god, a long time now. About 25 years, roughly.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. They used to be kind of like everybody's happy, fun story before, and now they're owned by the Saudis. So it's like everybody hates them. So it's like I don't know, man. I've taken the office space policy of like why should I change? They're the ones that suck. Like I've been here longer, man. Leave me alone. Like this is just my team. But
So
uh,
some bars, so some bars, Joe, are like one specific team, like say if you're a Tottenham fan
Mhm.
or Newcastle, like there are some bars where it's like that bar's known for just that one team. Like
There's
Banshee is kind of
some
like all
places
teams
like
meet
that.
up.
I think Banshee's pretty friendly to everybody. I think when the guys started up, because there's four guys that own the place, from Ireland. I think three of them are
Met one
Liverpool.
of them.
Matt, which who did you meet? Did you meet Kevin or Connor
I
or?
don't know the name, but I can tell you that he's an older guy. He's older. I
Mhm.
don't want to say old because that sounds like rude, but
Right.
older than myself, who's
Okay.
relatively old. And they probably, well, maybe they all sound, with the
They
accent.
sound
He
very
had a
Irish.
very sounded. I loved it. My wife was
Yeah,
obsessed with this guy's voice because of his accent. Yeah, he had a very, very, very strong
that had to
Irish
be Kevin.
accent.
Yeah, no, Kevin's
Good
one of the
guy.
good ones. He's also three of the owners are Liverpool fans. He's a Manchester United fan, so he's a little different from the rest of the group there. But like that kind of explains like the whole place. Like Liverpool, like their group, the Queen, I think it's Queen City Cop. They'll come in, they'll take over for when their team's playing, so they'll get crazy. Buffalo Spurs, that's the Tottenham Hotspur local group. They'll come in and take over. Our tiny little, Toon Army Buffalo group will be there for when Newcastle's play. There'll probably be about three or four of us there sometimes, sometimes more. But we're starting to find out that there's more fans in the area, and they'll pop in and be like, "Oh, hey, we didn't know there was other fans." We're like, "Yeah, we know. It's the way we felt about it too." But fans of everybody. There's Arsenal fans, Man United fans, City fans, just everybody. It's you name it. They're starting to find the Banshee on the weekends, and it's great. And let me tell you, when USA Soccer is playing, men or women, it's the place to be
Yeah.
because everybody, if you're fans of like whatever teams in England that you're a fan of, if you're an American, you're a fan of USA Soccer, so everybody's on the same team together. So it's kind of like having the all-star team come together with everybody at the bar and going wild with it. So it's a good time, and it's a great atmosphere for it. If you haven't been down there since it was Darcy McGee's, it's still basically the same layout. Just
Yeah.
a little bit more refined, a little
Kind of
nicer.
like the library nook, like behind
Yeah,
the bar with all the books and the tables.
yeah,
It's really vibey, man. I
yeah.
enjoy it a lot.
It's a great joint. And if you're, if soccer's, if you're not getting out for soccer, if you're getting out on the weekends, you want to check out the place. You've got Irish bands, musicians,
Yeah.
artists there like every weekend, just play, and it fits the vibe of the whole joint, man. It's a great time.
I don't know soccer well. I feel like if I really wanted to commit myself, I'm sure I could learn the sport
Hmm.
relatively quickly. But yeah, just the vibe, the party. It just seems
Yeah.
like, a lot of fun. I mean, you want to get out, you want to go have fun on a weekend morning, get your day started early, do
Yep.
some day drinking. That's awesome. Yeah, I got to get there for some soccer, man. Like I said, I went there on a Saturday. It was just a normal, regular Saturday. Went to a couple places down. I'm not a downtown
Mhm.
guy, so I rarely
Yeah.
get downtown, but some places that are kind of popular that I like. I never been to the Big Ditch before.
Oh,
I don't know if
nice.
you've ever been there.
Oh, yeah. Big
it,
Dish is great.
yeah, it's really nice, man. I can't remember the name of it, but they had a really good draft that I liked there too. Went to Lafayette Tap Room. I've been there once or twice. Then there was a bar. I didn't even know this place existed. I don't know if you know it. Well, two places. One I really liked a lot. One, I'm not going to disrespect it. It just wasn't for me.
Okay.
Something octopus.
Oh,
Uh,
Spotted Octopus. It's
Spotted octopus. Maybe it was
new
just
brewery.
really,
Yeah.
really, really, really small.
Hmm.
Like if you and I were going to go there and have a couple beers, I'd have a good time because we could just sit at the bar or
Yep.
one of the tables. But I was with a group of 14 people, and like that,
Oh, man,
just
you
that place
guys
is
took the
not meant
place
to have.
over.
Yeah, that place is not meant to have groups of 14 people. Well, not that it was a bad spot. I don't know. It just wasn't for me. It was a little bit too small. But then I went to a place called the Founding Fathers.
Oh, legendary,
Um, is
legendary.
it? How I've grown up in this city. I've lived almost all my life in Buffalo, and I've never
I
heard of
can't
that
believe
bar.
you've never been there.
Never
That's
been there.
that's
First
stunning.
time.
Wow.
It's different, man. It's
Yeah.
unique. That's what I love about that place. You go in there, and every bar has shit on the walls that you look at. You're like, oh, whatever. This is different. I mean, it's pretty much all presidential stuff and
Mhm.
photos and
Yep.
all kinds of artifacts. The bartender was like 10,000 years old, but a really cool dude. He did a trick. I can't even explain it, but he kind of took my beer. I had a half a draft, and he flipped it
Mhm.
around with his hand and didn't spill any on the bar. I was mesmerized by him and shit. But yeah, man, I again, I don't go out too often.
Mhm.
But when I do, I got to start doing more stuff like that. It's fun
Yeah.
to try different places and go to do different things, which is I feel like I haven't done enough of that in my life here in
See,
Buffalo. So really cool.
I'm
On the other, go ahead.
see, I'm surprised because I would have assumed that a place like Founding Fathers, you would have been to 100 times already.
Never
I
heard of
would
it.
have never been like, you've been like, take me someplace downtown. Like, where are we going? I would have skipped right over it, thinking like, you've probably been here 1,000 times.
Yeah.
I would have felt like a jackass if I was like, come on, man, we're going downtown. And then like, you're like, Founding Fathers, I ain't never been there before. Why didn't you take me there? And I'd be like, where do we even start? Where do we even start here? But yeah, no, I'm glad you went and had the experience. If it was Mike behind the bar, were you getting trivia questions while you're sitting at the bar?
I didn't, but now that you say that, I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure he did do
Yeah.
trivia with somebody else. And he also brought up that they have a trivia night there
Yep.
at the bar as
It's
well.
one of the most competitive ones in the city.
Is it really? I'd
It's
really like that
yes.
place. I could totally see myself going back there again. Before we dive into some sports talk, by the way, sticking with recommendations from you, I'm talking about going back to the Banshee. You told me about that
Mhm.
before. Look, everybody knows how I feel about Imperial Pizza
Yeah.
and how many shows I think I've done 20, 25 shows there, at least live, including one with you and
Mhm.
alongside Rachel Hotmeyer all not that long ago. And the wings, and I'm known as a wing person. And I probably have had wings there, geez, God, 100, 150 times. Only once before did I have them. And I had, so, all right, so let me rewind a little bit. Last week, I had a live from Imperial show with Chad DeDominicis.
Mhm.
And I asked him what kind of wings he wanted. And most of the time, people like the heat, man. So get
Yep.
hot and hot this or hot that. And Chad was pretty upfront, says, listen, I'm not much of a heat guy. So
Mhm.
we went with medium. And then I thought of you because I remember you went there once, not with me and not
Yep.
for the show, but you were there once. And because I actually remember because you tried to go to Sunny Reds, but they were
That's
closed. It
right.
was a Sunday, ended up in Imperial Pizza, and you got Jamaica jerk wings. Jamaica jerk
Yep.
wings.
Mhm.
I got those. I don't remember having them before, and I know if I feel like I would have remembered these because I had them
Mhm.
on last Thursday night with Chad. Top tier wing,
Yeah.
fucking great wing. Holy shit, man! The flavor in those. I mean,
Mhm.
they get a little bit sticky because
That's
they're
sticky. Oh,
Jamaican
yeah.
jerk wings, but it's worth
Mhm.
it. You go wash your hands in the bathroom and wash around your
Yeah.
face, your lip area for 30 seconds, and you're good. Holy shit, though, dude! You put me onto some new wings. I'm usually the one who's putting other people on the wings.
Yeah.
You put me on to these Jamaican jerk wings at Imperial Pizza in South Buffalo.
Mhm.
Were like borderline elite, man.
Yeah.
These were freaking phenomenal.
Yeah, I was even blown away by these because every place, not every place will offer them, but a lot of places will have that. Everybody
Mhm.
makes it their own different way. They do whatever.
Sure.
But Imperial blew me away because it was, because it was like sticky. It was like the sticky barbecue sauce that sometimes you get barbecue wings. It's really sticky sauce and it just kind of stays with you. This totally did the same thing because I swear to God, I washed my hands for an hour afterwards. I'm like, why do I still smell this? It's still in my finger. I still smell my fingers. I'm like, I got like brush my teeth 3 times, just like mop off my mouth. I'm like, it's like, man, this stays with you, but at least it's a good stays with you. It's like, oh man, could get those again. And
Yeah.
when you mentioned this to me, and I'm like, man, I ain't had those in a while. I kind of want to get some again. So
Well, we
yeah,
will go up there.
I have to make another trip back, man.
Yeah, well, we're definitely I'll get you up to Imperial. We'll do a show there and we will have them. They had like this kind of charred pit
Oh yeah.
aftertaste to them as well, which made them even better. And one last thing too, because I mean Imperial does sponsor that series. I do want to make sure for people who are watching and listening that I plug. They got a brand new second location. It just opened literally within the past week, 1655 Main Street. So if you happen to live near the Canisius College area, Sisters Hospital, around there on Main Street, brand new location.
So you're saying they moved a lot closer to me, is what you're saying?
Yeah, they did. They
That's
moved a
right
lot
up in
closer
my
to you.
neighborhood.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I'm the South Buffalo. I don't live in South Buffalo, but I live 5 minutes from South Buffalo. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna keep going to the Abbott Road. That's my spot. But yeah, for people out there, Main Street, Canisius College area, yeah, that whole scene out there, Hurdle Avenue, not all that far from there. It's a brand new location, so that's exciting for people who live around there. All right, let's dive in here. You know what? I know you're the hockey guy, but
Right.
you're also a football guy. Enough
Yeah.
enough of a football guy for me anyway to we're gonna lead with some football, and then we'll get to the Sabres in the second half of the show. A big win for the Bills on Sunday against the Jets. It goes without saying that they needed it. To me, the season was over if they lost that game. I feel they came out and probably had their best game of the season since going all the way back maybe to week 4 when they pounded on Miami. Talked about a little bit yesterday. Feelings haven't changed really after sleeping on it. I don't want to get too high on how good the defense looked, and they did look great. But I don't want to get too high on the defense because that Jets offense is just, I mean, they're completely atrocious. I mean, they're
Awful.
another train wreck. By the way, Zach Wilson got benched in that game. He's no longer the starter. They said it today. I saw the press conference with the Jets. In fact, he's not even the backup. Now he's the third stringer. So the Bills put a starter on the bench permanently. But anyway, I'm not going to
put a backup back on the bench for good.
yeah, exactly. I'm not, I don't really want to talk much about the defense. They did a good job, but against an offense that is just, it didn't take a lot to do good against them. That said, though, win or lose, the Jets defense is one of the best defenses in the NFL. It has been all year. They're right at the top. They have absolutely stymied Josh Allen over the last couple of years. The Jets came into this game beating Josh and the Bills 2 of their last 3. The Bills only scored more than 27 points once in their last 10 games against the Jets since Josh Allen came into the league coming in. So there was a lot of precedent for the Jets just having success against the Bills and making the ugly in the game, making the Bills have to grind out these victories. Wasn't really the case. And this was, of course, Joe Brady's first game as offensive coordinator. And maybe not so much in real time, but after watching the game back, and I did watch this morning, Monday morning, the All 22 film, did some good things. You could see a difference in Joe Brady as the coordinator. You see receivers going in motion, a lot more different looks. And most importantly, and this was obvious, I'm sure even you, Joe, as well, just watching the game as an observer and not a Bills fan, because you're not a Bills fan. You're a Bills watcher. We say it all the time.
Yep.
The running backs involved in the passing game. 2 touchdown passes, one to James Cook, one to Ty Johnson on a 4th down call. They schemed running backs into the passing game very, very effectively. If you're a Bills fan, the offense, for the first time in a long time, I feel like, and I'm sure you agree, a lot to be optimistic about. Because again, this was no chump defense that they did this against. This was an elite defense, and the Bills had a lot of success on Sunday.
Yeah, they were able to kind of wear them out as the game went on, because the first quarter and a half, about maybe even the first half, even like it was looking a little bit like, boys, I was like if I had zero, if I wasn't hanging out with my buddies and I had zero interest in this, I would have shut the game off and said, I gotta find something else.
Yeah, it was boring.
It was just awful to watch. And then I feel it's good. It's good to be optimistic about how things look different. I think that's fair. I think that's really fair for the Bills because yeah, the Jets have played them well. They played them tough for about, like I said, a quarter and a half, about, a half of football, and wore them down. And that's great. That's good. I'm not going to go full meme style though. The meme where it's close up on the guy like showering himself with champagne and going, yeah. And they zoom out and he's like on the fifth spot on the podium. Like, yeah, man, we did it. Like, I'm not going to pull a Denny Green and crown him. I'm not crowning anybody's ass on this one. It's the Jets, man. I don't know. I've been saying this like all season. I don't know how the hell the Jets won these games that they did. I assume it was the defense. I assume.
Oh, it was definitely the defense, buddy.
Stink.
Oh my God, it was
stink out loud, dude. They're so bad. So,
but
you got to win the games, and the Bills have not. The Bills have not won those games the last few weeks. So
they haven't.
Baby steps. It's baby steps. So it's good.
And you know what? I mean, let's be fair here. And this better than anybody, man. And not just football. Leagues are week to week. All leagues are.
Right.
Things can change so much in a week. I get that. But this is the same Jets team with the same bummy ass quarterback in Zach Wilson, who A, beat the Philadelphia Eagles, B, should have beat the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
So they have beaten or played tough, good teams with this same roster. Do you think, to some extent, my guy Tone Pucks on the show yesterday said this, and it kind of resonated with me a little bit. He goes, I think the Jets defense finally got so sick of their offense. They're like, oh, fuck, here we go again. I am tired of this. I am tired of having to carry and be perfect every week for our team to be able to stay in it. When is this offense going to fucking do anything?
Yeah.
They get annihilated offensively. And then the defense just gets at some point, they're going to get demoralized and be like,
Get worn out.
and it kind of felt like that's the kind of game it was because it was 16-6 and a half.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it,
That I think that makes a lot of sense to me because yeah, I mean, yeah, we've seen this with countless other teams where one half is doing all the heavy lifting for the other one, and at some point the other half just, maybe it's a week, maybe it's for the rest of the season, maybe it's just for for a quarter or two, whatever. But they just say, man, you guys got to do something here. You got to help us out. Like the Jets D holds the Bills to what, field goals in the first three. That's right, the first three possessions. And this was after the offense had handed the ball over. Well, I think it was the third one where they handed it over to them, and they're inside the 30 or something.
Yeah, and the first
and
one
it's
was
like, boy, this game's over with now. And then the D still held strong, still did their job, and it holds them to a field goal. And it's like, all right, man, show something. And Jets started to try to do something, but still were the Jets. And then it was still jackasses and still couldn't do something right. So I mean, I think there's part of that where one side's trying to do everything for the whole team and say, all right, let's do this. Just be slightly competent and maybe we can win this game. And the Jets offense just couldn't do that at all.
Yeah, it's kind of like maybe on the hockey side, it's like a goalie who just continuously stands on his head. And at some point, he's like, geez, I'm not getting any fucking help. And then it kind of wears on him after a while. There are a few things I do want to get to that concern me. I want to talk Von Miller for sure. I definitely want to talk Gabe Davis in a second too. And just the dog team schedule now that lies ahead of the Bills. But kind of going back to Joe Brady, there are some things that I took away from this game that you can see that are different than I like. I talked about, like I said, the running backs being involved in the passing game. Ty Johnson, who the hell knew? Who the hell knew what a weapon he could end up being? I mean, good Lord. And, I'm calling myself out because how about 90 minutes before the game, they had the weekly inactives and it's announced an hour and a half before the game. Well, he was active and I threw a little bit of one of my famous Twitter temper tantrums because I wanted Leonard Fournette. I'm like, why is Leonard Fournette not playing? And I bitched about the Bills because they always seem to bring in running backs in season who take forever to become any kind of part of their offense.
Yeah.
So I was like, come on, nobody's going to I said this too. God, I'm calling myself out. Said nobody's going to try. Ain't nobody telling me, I actually said that Leonard Fournette ain't better than Ty Johnson. And then Ty Johnson goes out and very clearly, not only was he active, but it was crystal clear that Joe Brady had a plan and a role for him. And it worked. Again, he caught a touchdown on a 4th down pass too. That was a play designed for him. So the running backs were effective. Dalton Kincaid, yet again, catches 6 passes, 5 in the first half. Here's a fun fact. Let me make sure I remember it. Oh, yeah. All right. Dalton Kincaid has the 4th most receptions of any tight end in the NFL this season. Only Hawkinson, Ingram, and Travis Kelce have more catches at the tight end position than Dalton Kincaid. Ironically, your boy Laporta, Laporta's only 1 catch. Sam Laporta's only 1 catch behind Kincaid, so he's got the 5th most catches. So, man, you want to talk about two teams that really hit big on their yeah, he is. They're, talk about two teams that really hit big on rookie tight ends, the Bills and the Lions for sure. But anyway, my point is Dalton Kincaid has become a focal point of the offense. They're using the running backs more than just running the football, and they ran the football pretty effectively too. And then Khalil Shakir, who did absolutely nothing for the first month of the season, but he's been coming on. He had 92 yards against Tampa a couple weeks ago, and now he has 115 yards against the Jets, including an 81-yard touchdown, which if I saw the stat correctly, it might be the longest offensive touchdown of the entire season in the NFL. I think this is the stat I saw. It's certainly the most for the Bills. I know that for sure. Yeah. So anyway, just secondary weapons. Dude, Stephon Diggs had 4 catches for 27 yards. Gabe Davis didn't even have a throw, let alone a catch. Who gives a shit, though? They put it up 32 points. So I mean,
Davis played the week before. I understand not wanting to throw to him. Honestly,
freeze
him out. Keep running your routes, pal. I'll throw
for sure. But it's an unpredictable. It's an offense that looks more unpredictable, and that was my biggest beef with Dorsey.
It
Yes,
needed to be less predictable. I
you
mean,
can't.
it was one thing given Diggs Beasley's pass tree. I keep saying that. I keep boring my friends saying that, but like the more I keep seeing Diggs run these 5 yard, these scamper routes over the cross, across the middle or on the outs or whatever, I'm just kind of like, what the hell are they doing with this guy? Throwing the ball, man. But I mean, Davis dropping balls all over the place, serving up interceptions for Allen, doing that stuff. Yeah, change it up, man. Be less.
Yeah.
You got enough guys. Be less predictable. Like there's no need. There's no need to be for a defense to line up and go like, well, we know where this is going, and then be right. 80% of the time. Like you got guys that can ball. Let them ball, man.
Yeah. Listen, when it comes to Gabe Davis, it's frustrating in a way.
Mm-hmm.
He's had 3 games now where he's had 0, 1, and 0 catches over his last 4 games. Sandwiched in between that, which feels like such an anomaly now. He had 9 catches for 87 yards and a touchdown against Tampa. It's frustrating in a way, but in another way, I don't care because, well, I mean, listen, there's one football, right? You want to run the football. You got an MVP caliber quarterback. You want him running the ball more, and he is starting to run the ball more again, like he used to. Not recklessly either. You,
Wasn't reckless. He wasn't reckless, but whoo,
yeah, he took a couple shots. He took a couple shots.
I don't know, man. Like
He took a couple shots for sure. But and then you got a top 5 receiver in Stephon Diggs. You got an emerging rookie tight end who's already got 50 catches in Dalton Kincaid. Shakir's starting to do some nice things for you. And you want to run the ball and you want your running backs involved in the passing game. You only got one football, man. So somebody's stats are going to go in the drain. I'm fine with it being Gabe Davis. There will come a game. It might be Philly. It might be Kansas City, which Kansas City kind of made him to begin with a couple of years ago. There's going to be a game where Gabe Davis is going to have 3 or 4 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown for them to have a chance to win. It's just the way football goes. But I'm not going to sit there and bury the guy for not having numbers. You can't bitch that he's not getting fed the football or making plays if you want Kincaid to be a big part of the offense, if you want Cook to be a big part of Shakir, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Et cetera, et cetera. The only thing I am convinced of now that I wasn't before is there is a 0% chance that Gabe Davis is re-signing with the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
I thought for sure that he would be potentially, at least anyway, a priority free agent off signing. But the way this offense is looking and the way it's structured and the way Joe Brady wants to run this offense, I don't know, man. I'm fine with him not having numbers.
We'll see
he
how
got
this
praised.
we'll see how this conversation goes after the next 3 games.
Yeah, I might call and yell at you.
Like, he might be like, he's like,
fucking Gabe Davis.
Like just it's like that's I mean, that for me is the whole thing. Like the goal for the Bills is the goal was is the Super Bowl. Like
sure,
you got to make it. You got no choice. You got to make it. You can't be falling short. Can't do any of that stuff. And now that it's like, reality's kind of kicked in and it's like, oh shit, now they just got to just make the playoffs, guys. Like this is where the bars fall into. And now it's these next 3 games in the face, 2 of them on the road. I mean, listen, I'm rooting for the Bills against the Cowboys. Don't get that twisted. Even against the Eagles. I mean, I don't know. Eagles are probably too far ahead in that division anyways, but like get Dallas out of here. Maybe Phil, I don't know. Maybe home field. I don't know. These are the things I got to think about now with my team, but like,
yeah, for sure.
I got to think about this kind of crap, but I mean, I don't know, man. Like it's daunting and you got to hope that this is the right switch for them, that Brady's kind of got a more of a pulse on things than Dorsey just being like, well, coach said we got to run the ball, so let's run the ball. Or coach said we got to do this, so let's just do this. And Brady's kind of got that freedom to be like, yeah, okay, Sean, yeah, we'll do that. Okay, we're gonna run this play, guys. Okay, just don't worry about what Sean says when you get to the sideline. Let him yell at me. Like if it's one of those kind of deals, then that's perfect. But if Dorsey was just kind of like, well, coach just said we got to do these things, so let's just do what coach says. It's like, well, let coach worry about the defense, please.
Well, when it comes to Brady, like I said, I'm not going to get too excited over one game. But that said, I'm also not going to underplay it because I did see a defense or an offense that A, looked differently, and B, did it against a very quality defense. If they went out and played Washington, or someone like that they played earlier in the season, or the Raiders and dominated, I wouldn't be feeling as confident, or at least optimistic. Maybe not confidence the right word,
Mm-hmm.
but at least optimistic about the offense. Here's what I want to do. I want to take a real quick break, come back. Going to bring up a controversial Bills topic, and I'm going to tie it into the Detroit Lions as well, because you knew I was going to find a way to do that. And then we're going to talk some Sabres as well. So I'll be right back. All right, I am back with noted hockey author, co-host of the Maintenance Day podcast with Lance Lasowski of the Buffalo News, my good friend, Joe Yerdon. Going to get into a topic that I could tell just on, and we're taping this little bit around dinner time-ish on Monday for a Tuesday drop on the audio side. Video people might be able to catch us late on Monday night. Anyway, one thing I can already tell on Twitter, Bill's Twitter, is I brought up Von Miller, and I put out a tweet earlier because Leonard Floyd is crushing it this year. Leonard Floyd has 9.5 sacks already this season. Want to talk about just an absolutely fantastic late free agent addition. Leonard Floyd has been everything the Bills possibly could have wanted and more. 9.5 sacks, like I said. And I put out a tweet and I said, man, the conversations would probably be different about Von Miller right now were it not for Leonard Floyd. Leonard Floyd is basically doing what we hoped Von Miller would be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And look, when it comes to Von Miller right now, I get it. You got $1 gazillion invested in this man. Mm-hmm. He is coming back from an ACL tear, which is very hard to do, and it takes time to do. And, you factor in his age, and the defense of him continues to be, and again, I understand he needs time. What did you expect? He's working his way back in, yada, yada, yada. And my mindset is, it's been 7 weeks now, and Von Miller has done 7 games, Joe. 0 sacks, 2 tackles in 7 games. He's played 98 pass rushing snaps. He's only generated 4 pressures. He's got 1 quarterback hit. I looked these numbers up because I wanted to make sure I knew what I was talking about. On PFF, he's got a 3.9 pass rush productivity number. There's 114 eligible defensive ends in the NFL right now. That means they played a minimum of 20% of their team snaps. Mm-hmm. Out of 114, Von Miller's pass rush productivity is 108. So he's literally near the bottom of the league. So you're trying to balance the fact that he needs reps and time to get to what he could be. My stance at this point is this man, a legend, a first ballot Hall of Famer, is hurting his football team right now. Let me put up one tweet because I screen grab this. It's from a guy named Buffalo Billy G. And this is not being disrespectful to him personally. We had civil conversations. This wasn't no personal mudslinging and insults, which you know how Twitter can get, Joe. It wasn't that. But myself and my good friend Aaron Quinn from Cover One were and then other people were jumping in, arguing about this point. And he says, these Von Miller conversations sound a lot like the Trey White conversations from last year. When White went down this year, everyone was saying it was a big loss and that our Super Bowl odds because he was playing better. It's almost like recovery time is a factor. Here's my thing. Yo, you're about to play the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Chiefs. You have to win these football games or you're not going to be in the playoffs. Yep. I'm at the point, my mindset is, if this is all you're going to get from Von Miller, who is clearly nowhere near what he should be. Anybody would have. You don't need to be no film expert to know that shit. He's running. He's either bull rushing or he's rushing 10 yards past the quarterback because he ain't cut it. He's just, he's not at that point yet, maybe of his health to be able to do that. But he's hurting the football team because he's not one of the 4 best defensive ends. So every time he's out there in a big third down, one more thing to add too. That Cincinnati Bengals game, 3rd and 3, game on the line. Von Miller got caught inside. Joe Mixon goes around him. Bam, ball game. If another end, if that check lost and if that's result, they make that stop, they're punting. The Bills have a chance to win the game. Just saying. Von Miller ain't one of the 4 best defensive ends. So every time he's out there taking a snap, that means Rizzo or AJ Epinesa or Floyd or even Shaq Lawson, who they're all better than him right now. They're on the sidelines. To me, that's you're not having your best players out there. Do you think it gets to a point, if you're the Buffalo Bills right now and you're looking at this objectively, that you might want to consider shutting down Von Miller until next year because he's not going anywhere. His contract, he's going to be back next year. Do you think about shelving him and saying, yeah, he just doesn't have it right now? We got to go with our best 11 players on every snap.
I think this conversation should have happened 7 games ago when he says, like, I'm back and I'm ready. Like,
yeah.
Okay, man, that's a serious injury. If you're ready, you're ready. Like, you got to test out, you got to practice, you got to show everything that, like, you're ready to go. And like, listen, I believe the Bills were like, all right, man, you say you're ready to go. Let's do this. And then he practices well enough so that it's like, okay, good to go. But every time I see him out on the field, every play where you circle 40, because you're going to do that, you're going to pay attention to him because, again, he's the man. Like,
we're waiting. We're all waiting.
You're all looking to see what he's going to do. Every time I see him play, like, he's getting pushed to, like, the tackle is just like riding him to the outside and being like, see ya. Like, he knows that the tackle knows he is not going to, like, try to swim over or cut back or cut to the inside on him. He just knows, like, because Von isn't doing it if he's not. And that to me is where the hard conversations got to come in with him. Because if you're saying, like, listen, if you're worried about your knee and if you don't feel like that's stable enough to be able to do these cuts or crossovers or stunts, whatever you're trying to do to get him loose, if he ain't ready to do it, I mean, you got to find another way to do it. I mean, and I get it. Like, they're doing a rotation, like they're working these guys around, and it's paying off for 4 out of 5 of these guys. Getting hot take alarmed on this one, man.
The hot take alarm is off on the west side.
But I mean, every time you watch, he's just getting rode to the outside, and the quarterback is just like, well, there he goes. He's gone. I don't have to worry about him again. Unless I've got the ball for 5 more seconds, and then everybody's got a chance to come and get me. He ain't a factor. Like, he is a zero factor. And I know they're trying to disguise it because they've dropped him into coverage sometimes, which I get it. But, like, if I'm a running back and I got Von Miller on my ass trying to cover me, I'm like, see ya, bud, gone. Like, because I know he ain't catching me, and if I do a move on him, he ain't gonna jive with me and go.
No. It's
a real tough spot because that's a lot of money. It is a lot of money they put towards him, and they can't do anything about it. So you need him to work. So they got no choice but to, like, wait this out and hope that it comes around. But still, results are results. I mean, you said it, 7 weeks, he's done nothing. He's done absolutely nothing. And it's predictable when he's out there because, if he's coming, like, well, he ain't going to be a threat to us. We got to worry about everybody else on the line, maybe. But, like, that dude ain't going to do anything to us.
No, listen, man, again, with no disrespect to Von Miller, this is the money time of the season. This is literally, it's make or break. And what bothers me about the Trey White comparisons is that, yes, it is the same injury. Yes, Trey White came back last year. Yes, he was not the same player last year. And yes, he was the same. He was back to being old Trey White this year before he got hurt again. Okay. Well, last year when Trey White was playing and he wasn't really helping the team because he was only a shell of himself last year, the problem then was the Bills didn't have anyone else at corner, even at 70% of Trey White. That was better than Trey White. That is not the case with Von Miller right now, Joe.
Nope.
When you have Von Miller out there, again, let's say you have Floyd out there pass rushing with him. That means you got Greg Rizzo, who, by the way, is way too good to be playing. I think he played 30 snaps against the Jets. But you got Rizzo and AJ Epinesa, both of them on the sideline right now with Von Miller in there. I still think man, Kingsley Jonathan might be better right now today. He's not a better football player than Von Miller, but he's a better football player right now, maybe today, than Von Miller is. Ditto for Shaq Lawson. So you got better options on the sideline. So you're not putting your defense in the best position to succeed on any pass rush snap right now that Von Miller's there. And there's a fair contingent of people who are going to say, well, you got to get him right. My mindset right now is, okay, let's do that next training camp. All preseason long. He'll be 100%. He'll be like Trey was this year. I love that Von Miller. That Von Miller's a beast. But I don't think we're going to see that Von Miller.
Yeah. Get him right at practice. You don't need him to get it right in games. Like, get him right in practice so that, like, every time you're doing some kind of drill with him, and if he's hitting in the backfield, he's getting past your O-line every down. Okay, good, man. You're right. You're in. Let's see it in a game. But
can you afford 20 to 25
guys playing better than him? Like,
you're playing the Eagles, you're playing the Cowboys, you're playing the Chiefs. Can you afford 20 to 25 snaps of nothing? Because let's just be real. The best thing you can say about Vaughn right now is maybe he's commanding some attention and maybe that's opening an opportunity for somebody else. I really don't even buy that, but
I can see that.
best case scenario, I'll give you that. But Von Miller is not helping this football team right now, and it's unfortunate. And he's trying. He wants to. He's
Right.
an all-time great football player. I love Von Miller, but
Mhm.
he's just not. He's not one of the best players on the team or on the field. Any snap he's out there when someone who's better than him right now, at least anyway, is on the sideline.
Mhm.
Going to the Detroit Lions. I watched that game against Chicago. At least I watched a lot of the highlight near the end anyway, because I was
Mhm.
watching the red zone. And I told you this. I'm kind of a you're a real Lions fan. I'm a bandwagon fan. I'm rooting for them.
Right.
Why not? Why wouldn't I? I like them and they're a good story. But anyway, here's my point. They come back. Chicago sucks. But anyway, Detroit comes back. They take a late lead. And what happens? Chicago gets one more chance. What was I think maybe the first play? Hutchinson, being the stud elite player that he is, closes the game out. Hits
Mhm.
Fields. The ball goes out of the end zone. Safety. Bam. See ya. Thanks for coming. Detroit
Mhm.
wins. That was Von Miller, but it's not now. And if you're not going to have game changing Von Miller and you're going to have what we're seeing from through 7 games, then get him off the field, maybe even shut him down, and let me have AJ Epinesa in those critical snaps that he's, or not even critical, just any snap
Yeah.
that he's out there or any of the other guys. That's what I'm saying when it comes to Vaughn. Maybe next year when he's healthy, we'll see that because he's not going nowhere and you're not cutting him.
Yeah.
So not for another
Right.
year. I don't
Yeah.
know.
The way, and I think of it in like kind of a hockey way. If you got a guy that has a weakness, you try to leverage them into situations where they can play better, they can look better, but they're not going to cause a problem for you on your own end. It's like starting a guy in the offensive zone or, get him off the ice if the puck goes the other way, whatever. I mean, listen, you don't want Von Miller in there on obvious rushing downs, like, because that's not what I mean, like the other team rushing the ball. I don't mean like pass
I know
rushing.
what you mean.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
other team's going to run the ball. You don't want Von Miller out there trying to stuff the run. Like that's not what his job is supposed to be for. But clear passing down, like maybe on their side of the 50. Maybe you're thinking like, all right, let's work them in there. Let's do this. And like, let's see if we can get them going on that side. So that way, when it's a passing down, when they're in an area where they're trying to get a first down to get closer to a touchdown, as opposed to, maybe stop them for a field goal or whatever, maybe you can take them out of field goal range. You don't feel as bad about putting them out. You don't feel like this might be a little bit dicey because, you've got other guys going, Epinesa is having a great season. It's only taken him 5 years to get going.
He's got
So
7 sacks.
like, I mean, come on, like you got him going. Rousseau's been great since he's come in. Floyd's having an unreal season. You got guys that can cover for those high leverage downs, those high leverage situations. Try to get Vaughn going on like some of these other things where the pressure's a little bit less, and maybe you can like kind of play with things, scheme around, like try to figure something else out because he's every down. I'm watching him, I'm highlighting him. If he's not dropping into coverage, he's rushing, and tackles are just shoving him to the outside, saying, "See you later, bud.
Yep.
You're never coming back." And
Yep.
like that's it. He's done. And then they're doubling the guy rushing on the other side, and it's turned into a dogfight to try to get that guy through to the quarterback on the other side, and then suddenly you're like, okay, D tackles, let's get in there. It stresses everything else out because one guy is definitely not getting it done.
You said the word high leverage, and you're 100% right. And you could see now and then you could see a couple glimpses of Vaughn. Like I did see a couple like bull rushes where he just put himself into the tackle and was trying to drive him back. You could see a rep here and there, but it's few and far between. And it'd be one thing. Hey, you want to get the guy out early in the first quarter and see if this is the week. Is this the week where he's going to have that bend with the shoulder and the knee, or is it not? And if it's not, he should be done. You said high leverage situation. I can't think of a more high leverage situation than Cincinnati a few weeks ago, where it's 3rd and 3. Cincinnati's trying to run the clock out. And again, Eric Washington or Sean McDermott, who's ever in charge of putting out the personnel for each play, did not have their best players out there because Von Miller was out there. Sure enough, Mixon exploited him, getting inside, ran around him on the outside, first down, game over. Happened last week against Denver, too, by the way. Wasn't a critical play of the game, but he got caught, pinched inside again. Yep. And the running back, Javonte Williams, went outside of him and got a first down. I don't know. These games are just, they're tough with or without, even with a great Von Miller. These are going to be really hard games to win. You got to play your best players, Joe. That's what it comes down to.
I'll tell you this. It's a good thing you didn't have me on after the Broncos game because I mean, as bad as it was with the offense and the defense, dude, they ran the same running play. I swear to God, 20 times. Like I was joking that like it was like a Madden thing where like the thing comes up and says, you've called this play 20 times and you've averaged 5.5 yards a carry. And I'm like, I'm Denver. Why would I not keep calling the same stupid play?
Yeah.
And they kept doing it. Like, it was the same play because it was running back over guard between a guard and a tackle on either side. Same formation, same setup, same everything. And these guys were pounding this ball in the same spot every time. And then the one time they were ready for it, it was a play action. They just dumped it to the back and he scooted in the end zone for the touchdown.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely, man.
It was so elementary watching this, going like they're calling the same play every time. Figure it out. Like it was reminded me a lot of that the Patriots game, the win game, where everybody knew the Patriots were going to run the damn ball the whole game because they knew stupid idiot quarterback couldn't throw the ball because the wind was blowing up 40 miles an hour. And then after the game, they're like, well, we had to be prepared for everything. Like, yeah, you didn't prepare for the one thing that they were going to do all damn game, man. Like, come on.
I was on a heater all last week. Literally. I mean, I remember the game was on Monday night. I did a show with Chad on late Thursday night in Imperial. That was more than that was 4 nights after the game, and I still was on a heater. I think ultimately that's going to be the game when we look back and the Bills very, very likely don't make the playoffs. I feel like it's going to be
on the road against somebody
that Denver
house them. Yeah.
Look, so this is where they're at now. So they're 6-5, and they got 6 games left. I feel 10 wins is getting you in the playoffs. With Deshaun Watson going down, Joe Burrow both going down, 10 wins is getting you into the playoffs. 10 wins might even get you in a position for to win in the division. I mean, if they could be within 1 game of Miami, which they are right now going into the last game, they could beat Miami. But anyway, they very well at 9 wins could be shut out of the playoffs just because I think Houston's a lock. I think Cleveland's a lock. I think it's going to come down to Buffalo, Pittsburgh. Maybe the Chargers can get hot near the end of the season. The Bills are far from done, but the Bills are not going to get in the playoffs just winning 1 and losing 1. You look at this rest of the season. This was my last take, Joe, with the Bills. They play the Chiefs. They play the Eagles, a bye, and then the Chiefs. 2 back-to-back games against the Super Bowl teams from last year. I feel the Bills got to win one of those 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
One of those 2 games, the Bills got to win. So right now, what are they? 6-5. They need to be 7-6 after these next 2. Then the table's kind of set up.
Dallas is a crap road team. They're so bad on the road.
But you never know. Any given day, they're so good, though, man. I mean, they're such a good
that's
team.
The thing. Like, they're a mental case team. Like, the
Chargers might be, sure. And the Chargers might be out of it.
Like, I just watched them in a shootout with Detroit last week where
they don't play any defense.
Anybody, which, hey, their offense looked great, but like they couldn't stop you or me.
Right. The Chargers are a dangerous team, but they're certainly beatable now, and they might be out of it and have their coach might be gone by that point. Who knows? The Patriots are fucking terrible. And then they play Miami in week 18. It could come down to that. But to me, you can't lose. You got to beat the Eagles or the Chiefs, and they'll be underdogs in both of them. But I also think they're capable, at least, of winning those games, especially against Kansas City. Philadelphia is probably the one game where I'm looking at. I'm like, when the schedule came out, and maybe after 5 or 6 weeks after the Bills' injuries, I circled 2 teams. I said, you ain't beating these teams. Cincinnati was one of them, and Philly was the other.
Yeah. Well, have you looked at the rest of the Dolphins schedule? I don't know if you looked.
It's hard at the end. They got Dallas at Baltimore and Buffalo.
The last 2 Dallas, Baltimore, Buffalo are the last 3.
They could be on a 2-game losing streak and then play the Bills. It could be for that division.
It could be. They got the Jets, the Commanders, the Titans, and then the Jets again. the games before that. So I mean, I'm just saying, like that's.
The Jets could play them though.
Kind of cruise into the end of the year if they want to, but
dude, the Jets got a new quarterback and it's a shitty quarterback, just like Zach Wilson. But
tell you about Tim Boyle, okay?
The Jets could beat
Lions
the
legend Tim Boyle. All right,
the Dolphins have not been impressive, and I'm not being a homer here.
There's games where they are impressive, and then there's games where they're not, but they still win.
Earlier in the season, not so much lately. I watched most of that Vegas game on Sunday. They were just dying for saying, Vegas, come take this game from us. And Vegas was just like, nah, we're not going to do that. Now, again, it's a week-to-week league, and you can say, well, how the fuck did the Bills ever lose to the Broncos at home? That can never happen. How did the Bills go and lose in New England in Foxborough? That can never happen. And it does. I get it, man. Bills are in a position where they don't really have any more room for error. Like they have to win the games that they're supposed to win or realistically could win. And that's because you fucking blew it against Denver. Like I said, you're 6-5 instead of 7-4. That makes all the difference in the world. And you could talk about the Patriots loss or the Jaguars loss or the Jets loss. The Bills didn't deserve to win any of those games.
Mm-hmm.
They got beat and they played like shit against Denver. But
Yep.
we could have, you know what? If we would have been doing the show, Joe, right afterwards, a post-game show, we'd be talking about, well, the defense couldn't stop him at the end. The offense couldn't do shit, blah, blah, blah. The game was fucking over. He missed the field goal. There's 0 on the clock. The game's over, so none of that matters except for a special teams 12 men on the field penalty because one guy was not communicated to get off the field. That's the only reason why they lost the game. The only reason. That's it. So they'd be 7-4.
Pretty big reason. But that I look at it, they could be 4-7 too.
Sure, yeah.
The Giants and Bucks games were referee. I know everybody hates referee. It never helps us out, but I'm like,
oh, absolutely.
Those 2 games kind of helped them out.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, fortunately for you, you really don't have to worry about this right now. Your squad's 8-2.
I'm standing on a carpet. I'm waiting to get ripped out.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. This team, just at some point, you got to just say, you know what, my team's good, man. you got a 3-game lead in the North. You're winning the division. All right, that division blows.
2.5, and Minnesota's playing like a better team now. So
they are. That was a pretty big loss.
Dobbs has turned.
I'm sure you're rooting hard for Denver on Sunday.
Like they got to play them. They got both their games with Minnesota left, so this is far from over.
Put it this way: Detroit would have to collapse right now to finish any worse than the 3rd seed. To be any worse than the 3rd seed,
at Pat. Guess what? They're historically really good.
See, that's why I said you should be a Bills fan this week. You want them to beat Philly because that could help Detroit. First of all, it's a loss for Philly. Philly still got to play Dallas. I think Detroit could get as high as, well, who knows, man? They might end up being the number 1 seed for for all you know.
Losing helps.
That's a 14
Dallas
conference.
Is right there, kind of waiting in behind them.
It's a 14 conference.
Niners, yeah. Eagles, Lions, Niners, Cowboys.
Let me tell you one thing that you don't want to happen. This is the only thing. If I'm a Detroit fan and I'm being pessimistic, right, and I don't even think, I know you think
out pessimist me here, Pat.
You don't think the division is losable. Or I don't think your division is losable. You still, you're a Detroit fan. You're like, anything can still happen. All right. Realistically, the worst thing, realistically, I think that could happen in Detroit is if they stumble and they end up in the 4th seed. If you end up in the 4th seed, that means you're playing, even though at home, that means you're playing Dallas or Philly. Whoever doesn't win that division, you're playing them. That's tough. You don't want to be the 5th seed. But if you're the 3 seed or the 2 seed, you're not doing that. You're playing at home against one of these shittier teams. Or if you get to number 1, you don't play at all. Well, my point is your Detroit Lions are in much, much better shape than, for most of the people listening or watching, than the Buffalo Bills. And that's not something I would have confidently have said.
8-2 team is definitely in a better spot than a 6-5 team. Like that.
You think? And in the NFC. Yeah. An
8-2 team in the NFC is just kind of like, well, yeah, okay, you're easily in the playoffs, but I'm just kind of like, not exactly.
Well, this is not something I think that many people would have projected going back into say August. So
no,
good.
And I'm looking at like ESPN and like their strength of schedule is like, it's like 451. I don't know where that ranks out like the rest of the way, but they're playing all NFC teams, so like whatever. But I don't know, man. Like it's, I don't know. It's very difficult for me to shake like everything, their entire history and everything that they've done. And like, I'm looking at these last few, like Green Bay and Thanksgiving. Like they should be Green Bay, but it's Thanksgiving. They play like dog crap on Thanksgiving all the time.
They ain't losing.
And it's at New Orleans, at Chicago, home against Denver, at Minnesota, at Dallas, home against Minnesota. Like Minnesota, 2 of the last 3 games. And Dallas in between it, like that's not great. They stink against Dallas, dude. Like, and it's at Dallas where Dallas plays great. So
they're still winning the division.
It's a potentially very ugly finish for them.
You're not losing the division, and nobody in the NFC South is going to finish with a better record. So you're not even going to have to worry about being that 4 seed either.
But if they lose to New Orleans, that would help that out, wouldn't it?
I guess, but it's not going to happen.
I'm just listen. There is all you can never out pessimist me on this stuff. You can never outdo it because this is just what it is.
One of the
New Orleans is going to win, probably going to win that division, probably, I guess. But like, I don't know, man. Like, yeah, that division's.
You're good. You're sunny, much sunnier days are. All right, let's just put it this way: more stress-free days or less stress days.
No,
or
things are more stressful now. Are you kidding me?
Not now. Later in the season, they certainly will. But you're in a really good position. And the Bills, conversely, just flat out don't have any margin for error. They can't. They gotta have an upset or two along the way, and then they gotta win the 2 or 3 games that they're going to be favored to win. It's just simple as that when it comes to the Bills. One of the reasons why I love having you on the show, man, is getting a chance. You're a hockey guy. You cover the Sabres full time. You write about them. You have your own Substack, Noted Hockey, which, by the way, www.notedhockey.com. See, I don't use Substack anymore. I remember that. Don't need to have that in the title. $5 a month can't go wrong. And Maintenance Day podcast that you do with Let's. Anyway, my point is this, man. You're constantly covering hockey, writing about hockey, and talking about hockey. So it's always fun to have you on and be able to talk some shit, to talk some football, talk about some bars, some food, some summer versus fall is elite kind of conversations that we like to have. Our starting 5 drafts we used to do all the time. Those were always fun. Probably should at some point before we get out of here talk at least a couple minutes of hockey though. The Sabres game, it was a fun game, by the way. So I say last night, we were taping this on Monday night and drops mostly, like I said, for most people on Tuesday. Sabres are 8-9-1 right now after 18 games. Just 3 points out of a wild card spot. That's the good news. The bad news is they're 2 points out from being the second worst in the entire conference. Sunday night, they beat Chicago 3-2. They needed to have that one, Joe. 4 out of 5 they lost, and just 9 goals during those 5 games. Power play is just the power play is the New York Jets offense of the NHL right now, man.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
11.5% success percentage. I looked that up, 6 from the bottom. What's up with the offensive woes besides the obvious that Tage Thompson is down for now? And more specifically, what in God's name is going on with the Buffalo Sabres power play?
Yeah, it's funny. They're the ultimate like glass half full, glass half empty kind of view on it, right? Because you can look at it and be like, well, the goaltending's a lot better, the defense is better. That's good, right? Like these are the things they needed to correct. And it's like, yeah, well, the offense has come back to earth in a startling way, and the power play is not top 5, top 10 in the NHL good. So there are things to fix. I'll say this: the things they need to fix are a little easier to address than the things that they needed to fix last year. Like goaltending and PK were pretty bad last year, pretty rough. And the goaltending is mostly fixed right now. UPL is playing outstanding. He's playing absolutely outstanding hockey. Eric Comrie's played very well. He got the Winnipeg game. People were like, they played really bad against Chicago. I was like, yeah, but they played great against Winnipeg and didn't get a point out of it. So, they run into like one of the best goalies in the NHL, and that's what happens sometimes. And they got hosed on a rookie hazing penalty in the last 2 minutes of the game because they should have been taking a guy from each team, and instead just Benson gets taken off the ice. That's a joke. But like there's 60 whatever games to go. So like I get it. This is the ultimate like NHL parody setup right now, because everybody in the East is either 3 wins from being like solidly in the playoffs or sleeping next to Columbus at the bottom of the standings. So it can anything bad can get way over magnified, and anything good can get way over blown up too. So right now, nobody's really high in the Sabres because they're not scoring a ton of goals. And yeah, that's tough. And being without Tage is going to be hard. It's going to be hard. But I think what this is going to do is that once it's going to allow more people to keep an eye on Casey Middlestat. And I mean, like Sabres fans being like, hey, this guy's been pretty good. Well, now you're going to see how really good he is, because he's been dynamite going back to the last 20 games of last season. He's been great all this season. I think people are going to get to notice how good he actually is. And then for the more pessimistic folks, are going to be like, well, how are they going to re-sign him in the offseason? He's a restricted free agent. And be like, wait for that at the end of the year. Just let it be. Just let him play good, and he'll everything's going to be okay. I think once Dylan Cousin gets the fishbowl off of his head, he's had to wear the full face shield since he got beat up.
Stop
by
fighting.
Hathaway. Holy Jesus, man!
These star players on the Sabres, man, you need to stop dropping the gloves, man. We get it. You're tough already. Cousins, got hurt in a fight a couple weeks ago too.
Yeah, it's just let it be, man. Just I get full marks, full courage, full credit.
Sure.
Like, I respect the shit out of it. Don't do it again.
Oh.
It's the Willie Mays Hayes thing. It's like, hey, good job, Hayes. Never fucking do it again. Like,
don't ever fucking do
it again, please. At least don't fight a guy that has cinder block hands. Just leave that alone. But this is a chance for those guys to really kind of get it going, because Dylan's the main guy that I'm kind of zeroing in on, because he's extremely good, but he's been asked to kind of pick up two guys at a time on his lines for most of this season. And I think coaching staff kind of realized that about 10 or so games in, and they're like, shit, we got to get him with some people that aren't fighting it to start the year. So that's why they had him playing on the wing with Tage and playing with Skinner and those guys. It's like, all right, let's get him going a little bit here, because he deserves it. So I think you're going to see those guys really picking it up. The way Skinner's playing is great. Now they've got Tuck back. Dude, the games against Pittsburgh and let me think, the Pittsburgh game last week and the Boston game, those stuck out like sore thumbs to me. It's like, boy, they really need him back in the lineup. Like, they really missed him in there, because he's such a different player than everybody else that they've got, because he plays, he's a power forward, but he plays fast, plays aggressive. He's got a great shot, like all those things. He does it different than how everybody else in that lineup does it. So he's like, it provides a little bit of a spark of change there. So he's back so that now that he's back, like that's a huge relief, because that gives them, another guy who can score, another guy, get that top line going again. And with it being Middlestat, Skinner, and Tuck, like that's a pretty damn good line.
Sure.
It's a damn good line right there. But I look at this offensive group, and there's something I'm going to have to write for Noted Hockey this week. And it's basically preparing everybody for the possibility South Buffalo's own Patrick Kane's going to be a part of this team.
Yeah.
You hear things, you see things, and you look at the lineup, and you're just kind of like, he's probably a guy that can really help things out right now. The baggage, all that stuff, forget it. Just think hockey here. He's a guy that could probably really help out this group. Now, the only catch is Buffalo's not the only team that's interested in him. You got Detroit, you got Florida, you probably got somebody out west maybe. But some of these East Coast teams, like, he probably wants to stay out east. I get it. But like, Detroit could probably give him the same contract Buffalo could right now without having to move anybody. Florida would have to move some people to make it happen. I know Florida just really wanted him since summertime. They wanted to get that locked in and steady, because if Florida gets him, Jesus Christ, the Panthers are going to be nasty. They're already nasty. And now they're getting Ekblad and Montour back to action, and Reinhardt's having an unbelievable contract season. So, like, I don't think you need the Panthers to get any better, do you? But they'll be right there in the mix. And if Pat wants to get a good shot at a cup right away, well, they're the team. Detroit would be fun because he gets to play with DeBrincat, and Buffalo would be fun for him because it's home. So there's a lot of reasons why, but boy, oh boy, I keep looking at the lineup and going, man, they need a little bit more of a jolt offensively. And like, where do you get one? Tage isn't coming back till probably New Year's, roughly, whatever.
Rounds, hopefully same time as Quinn too.
Right. And Quinn's coming off of an Achilles injury, so he's not going to look himself, right away. Give him a few weeks and he'll probably be back up to like his normal speed. But if you need a guy to kind of come in and, make things go again, and maybe give a lift and give a spark and all that stuff, he's right there, and he plays the wing, and the wing's kind of weakness. So I don't know, like, everything's lined up there for it to happen. It's just a question of whether or not he A, wants to do that, B, thinks that this is like a cup contender team or whatever. Like, what I think we have a good idea what his motivations are, but We don't really know.
Oh,
We
right.
don't really know.
The one thing that I pretty consistently hear when it comes to Pat Kane is that the puck's on his stick with what he wants to do. Well, you like that? Instead of saying the ball's in his court, I said the puck on his stick.
Right.
Pretty fucking clever by me. Which, by the way, if Pat Kane does sign with the Sabres, whether it ends up being a great move or it ends up being the dumbest move in the history of the franchise,
Mhm.
that is going to call for an Emergipod at Imperial
Yes.
Pizza. At Imperial Pizza, that shit probably would be like a
Well,
Stanley
there'll
Cup
be a
parade.
party down there. You kidding
Yeah, it
me?
would be like Stanley Cup parade, like Party in the Plaza kind of a vibe going on at a
Holy
place like
smokes! You'll have
Imperial
Kane
Pizza.
Sabres jerseys adorning every wall of that place, man.
Yeah, shout out Imperial Pizza. Two more things I want to hit on. Number one, you mentioned the goaltending, and a casual fan who maybe doesn't watch the games closely, or maybe not at all. They just and
Mhm.
then they're box score scouts, or they, just people look at the box score. UPL. He's played in 9 games. I'm looking it up right now. 2.80 goals against average, 0.911 save percentage. That's pretty good.
Mhm.
Comrie, 4 games, 2.62 goals against average, 898 save percentage. Number wise, statistically, it's like, eh.
Yeah.
Devin Levi, 4 games, 3.65 goals against, 0.881 save percentage. Two-part question, even though the first part you've already answered. I was going to ask you, has the goaltending been better watching it in person and covering the team than what it might look like on paper? And you pretty much already answered that. With Devin Levi, are we getting to a point right now where if he's the third goalie on this team right now, or the third best goalie on this team right now, not long term, right now, there's a big difference when I say that.
Yep.
If he's only going to play once every 4 to 5 games or something like that, if that's how it's going to be, is there a very reasonable case, a fair point that maybe he might be better off going to Rochester where he'll be behind the pipes every night as opposed to, like, I don't even know when's the last time he played. And when's he supposed to play again? I don't even know. That's my
Yeah.
point. Is it realistic that the goalie that so many hopes were pinned on a couple months ago ends up in Rochester? And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something that
Right.
could happen.
Uh, that's. I think that's a very hard conversation that Kevin Adams and Don Granato and those guys have to have
Mm-hmm.
right now, because if you want to have the roster flexibility, because right now they're keeping 8 defensemen and 3 goalies
Mm-hmm.
and 12 forwards. Like
Yeah.
12 forward. I'm trying to do quick math in my head. I'm probably screwing that up somewhere in my head because the other part of that is Ryan Johnson on defense he's staying. Like I would, if he goes back to Rochester, it's horrible.
They can't do
I think
that.
they can't do it right now. It's almost the same thing with Benson. Benson's got one more game before he hits number 9. He'll play
Mm-hmm.
probably Wednesday night in Washington.
Right.
If Benson goes back to juniors, you have to start asking some hard questions like, okay, what's happening here? What's, like, what are we doing here? Like, what's the answer? Now, the Benson question could be answered easily and be like, well, Benson's going back. By the way, we just signed Patrick Kane to a 3-year contract. So, or 2-year, like whatever. We just signed Patrick Kane.
Right.
That make up for this. You can soften that blow with that. If you send Ryan Johnson back to Rochester because you need to make room for something or other, or you want to keep Levi and he's playing once every 5 games, whatever the deal is, that's a much harder sell. That's a much harder sell. And unless you're trading Jacob Bryson to somebody for, make up a package of your own, like whatever you want to do, like just to free up the space, you can do that. But so many of those questions can be taken care of quickly if you send Levi to Rochester. Now, that would seem like the easiest, most sensible thing to do right now because he is struggling. He's not playing very well. Probably he definitely needs games. Like having him sit around is not going to help him out. But you wonder what the conversation was with him before the season. If the conversation is like, hey, you're our guy, you're our number 1, let's go get it done, Devin, we believe in you. Then if you're saying like, well, things have changed, you're playing like crap and UPL's playing pretty well and Eric Comrie's looked pretty good aside from, getting hung out to dry for, like 1 game. Sorry, bud, you got to go down to Roch and play a ton of games for us and kind of get it back together. That's a much harder conversation if you've told this guy like, hey, you're the one and we'll figure it out from there. Like, that's why to me, I don't think that will happen. I think they're going to keep 3 unless Levi's play absolutely makes it scream. He's got to go get some games and play in Rochester, because it so much of the, I mean, man, we keep coming back to goaltending and it drives me nuts. But like, so much of this offseason, the decisions made were basically made with Levi's our guy, we'll figure out the rest. And then if Levi's no longer your guy right now, all right, what do you like? What are you doing? Like, oh, it's like,
Agreed.
okay, you got Comrie and UPL, great, that's cool, but like it's that part's working out for you. That's cool, but now your future, I don't know, your future guy, you're now told like, well, you're not our guy right now, but you will be our guy. Like, you're kind of pushing that cart down the road. That's tough. It's really tough. And I don't know. We're at the point now. Like, I feel like we got to get a couple more starts out of Levi just to see for sure. Like, whatever he's working through, they had the injury thing, whatever. Like, fine. I got to see what he looks like coming back after dealing with like this kind of hardship, as opposed to like a physical hardship where it's an injury. This kind of thing where it's more mental and play related, because he didn't really have that in college. He played really well in college, and any kind of bad start that he had was immediately followed up by like running, pulling off like 10, 15 starts in a row where you're like, oh God, this guy's the best, the best in college hockey. Like, that's a lot harder to do at the NHL level, where you have a bad game and you're not going to rattle off 10 games in a row where you're just like, oh shit, give them the Vezina. Like, it's a much different difficulty level at this rate. So I want to see what Levi does with his next couple of starts, but it's really hard to pull the net away from UPL when he's playing as well as he is. And really hard to pull it away from Comrie, who's just getting back from injury and played really well against Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Just, he got skunked out by a fluke goal here. It's a couple of jokey things, but it's a hard question. Like, each time they've come up with a solution to fix a problem, it's led to another really impossibly hard question to answer. It's not the most ideal thing for a GM. Like, these are good problems to have, but they're also really tough answers.
My first thought before asking you that was, what I was thinking with Levi is setting him down feels like it's almost like a win-win. You justified it. Look, he's never even played no minor league games. He went from college right to the NHL, and you want him in the net every game. You want him playing him a lot, and it's just a short-term thing, and it'll work itself out, whether it's Comrie or UPL, one of them get hurt, or one of them are just playing shitty enough that you can make some kind of move or whatever. But then you brought up a point that I hadn't thought about when you said, well, if they did have a conversation with him, that does kind of change things, because that's not the impression you want to leave in a young netminer's head, that you say that. And then when the other side with Benson, I agree with you too, because whether it's signing Pat Kane, whether fans love or hate that, and there'll be a lot of love, there'll be a good amount of love, and there'll be a lot of hate. Let's just put it that way. Or if that's the time if you want to soften up the blow, and if they were to say bring Kulik up at that point when they get rid of Benson, fans ain't really going to hate on him coming up. So that would make that easy to soften as well. Which, by the way, what is your gut? You only got one more game. He's only got one more game. Then it's decision time. I'm not sure if one game is going to really sway the balance too much. Maybe it does. But as we sit here right now, and things change, it could be an injury, it could be a lot of factors. But as things stand right now, and that one game goes by, do you think he stays in Buffalo, or do you think he gets returned?
I think he's staying. He was easily their best player against Chicago. He was one of their best players against Winnipeg. He should stay. He should stay. He should stay. A couple of those early games were kind of like, well, new guy, like, let him work out the bumps and, get a taste of it first. But he's really settled in well, and he's such an aggressive forechecker. He showed that he's not going to take any shit from anybody against Winnipeg. He had Josh Morrissey, one of the best defensemen in the NHL, like, put a couple mitts right in his face, and he jumped right back at him.
Yeah.
Came right back at him, drew the ire of like the entire Jets lineup on the ice. So plays with a lot of guts, man. He plays with a lot of confidence, and to me, he's done what you need to see more games from him. Now, the contract thing, like, I look at that as just business. Like, if you keep him and he runs into a wall, like say game 15 or 16 or something like that, you can still send him back. Like, you're not prevented from You're not
Right.
prevented from doing that.
Right.
It's just you've burned the first year of the contract, which
So be it.
okay, like I
Not
mean,
ideal, but so
not the
be it.
ideal thing on the business side of things, but like if it's the best thing for the player, fuck, who cares? Like just
Sure.
send them back.
Absolutely.
Send them to World Juniors. Hell, if you're worried about that, just, hey man, go play World Juniors. We want to go win gold for Canada, I guess, but like just go play well. Like that's the kind of stuff you can do in that situation with him, because like if he starts to hit a little bit of a wall here until it's time for World Junior, Canada's World Junior camp, he starts to slow down a little bit. You can be like, all right, man, see ya. We'll loan you out. We'll loan you out to Canada.
Sure.
We'll come back in a month and then
Yeah.
we'll reconvene.
Yeah.
Like that's an easy fail safe there. Now, will they try to drag it out until then? Like does it get scratched Wednesday and then, maybe again, against Pittsburgh on Friday or whatever. I don't know. Like, but the nine game thing is just that's all contract manipulation as far as I'm concerned. And like if the guy belongs, he should be here. And if he got to go back, send him back. It just just kind of sucks business wise, because then you lose that first year. But if that's what it costs to get it right, okay, fine.
Maybe,
Well,
maybe
that's the cost.
maybe last year, especially 2 years ago, you're in a situation you don't want to burn that first year. But if your expectation is truly to make the playoffs, and you're sitting here telling fans of this show right now that he's been one of the best players over the last couple of games, you
Yeah.
want to skate, you want to dress your best players. It just would be, to me, inexcusable to not dress them. If you're scratching
Right.
them because of the drag the 9 game out thing, it's just not something I could get behind.
Yeah.
Not if you're a team
That's like an
that's
old regime
struggling.
type thing.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. So we can sit here and we'll talk about Pat Kane and we talk about Benson and Tage Thompson being hurt and the goaltending, all that stuff. I kind of feel like one player that's really won under the radar right now is JJ Paterka. I mean, real true hockey fans obviously are talking about him, but casual fans like, what's going on with JJ? JJ Paterka is leading the team right now with 7 goals. He's got 14 points. He's kind of having that like Jack Quinn of last year. He's like that breakout guy right now. That's fun to see.
Yeah.
And I know we sound like a broken record because we always talk about Rasmus, but I mean, what a good way to end the show. I want to talk about him for a minute because this was it started out as hey, this is a good Sunday. The Bills win, the Sabres win. Not gloomy. It's Thanksgiving and shit. Rasmus Dahlin is a horse, man. Dude leads the team again in points with 15 points. I'm looking it up, 24, almost 25 minutes of ice time right now. He's 11th among all NHL defensemen in points, 12th in assists, and then he's 7th among all defensemen in ice time. Again, sounds like a broken record here, Joe, but this guy's just he's a true superstar. He is one of the most exciting and certainly one of the best defensemen in this entire league.
Yeah, we've seen some of the best out of him here the last week or so, especially the Winnipeg game. Like he took that on almost on his shoulders entirely, and almost pulled. You don't want to be like, well, yeah, great job, almost pulled out a point, whatever, loser guy. Like, no, man, like this dude's incredible. And the Chicago game, same deal. Like just an animal type game. A goal, 2 assists. Played almost 30 minutes. I think against Chicago, I think it was it was kind of like a little bit of a throwback because, a little bit slow getting out of the gate, but he was still putting up points, mind you. Like it wasn't like he wasn't scoring. He was still putting up points, but everybody's just like, oh, what's going on with him? Something, not playing great, but man, the last week or so, he's like, this is superstar level Dahlin. Before we were seeing like really, really good player Dahlin. Now we're seeing the superstar come out, and it's probably not a coincidence that it's happened while Tage is out of action. But man, oh man, he's good. He's so good, and like the confidence with the puck, and the ability to just be like, "F this, I'm taking over." We saw that. Oh geez, the I forget who it was against though, but he scored a power play goal. I forget. What the hell? Maybe it was against Philly. The Philly game they won, where they just threw up a wall on the blue line and dared Buffalo to try to go into the zone, and he just was like, fine, fuck it, I'm just gonna throw the puck off the glass myself and go in and score, and he did. And you see things like that and you're just like, damn, dude, like this guy is incredible. And starting to see that happen like every game from now on. Like if he plays this way the rest of the way, man, I mean, it's incredible. It's awesome to see, and it's also, I mean, I just keep going back to the bad Ralph years where people are like, well, they're gonna trade this guy. Yeah, you gotta get rid of this guy. This ain't gonna work. Like, man, like all you needed was patience. All you need, like 18-year-olds need patience, man. And like that's the biggest thing. And now he's what, 23 and one of the top defensemen in the NHL. Like it's a pleasure to watch him play.
That's kind of how I feel a little bit about Owen Power, a little bit. Like
Mhm.
he's not been bad, but he's had his moments. And I'm like, all right, patience, man. The kid's still,
Right.
he's still very young. Bottom line with the Sabres, to put a wrap on this, is this. I want this team to stay afloat right now. That's what we need as the Sabres, and for speaking from a fan's perspective, to just
Right.
stay afloat. You don't want to fall where you got to jump 5 teams and you're 9 points out of a playoff spot. That's just too hard to do. So if
Mhm.
you could just stay afloat, like where they're at right now, 3 to 5 point range, and then you get Tage and Quinn back. Because in my mind, I keep thinking, man, oh man, is it going to be nice when they're healthy? When you got Tage, Skinner, and Tuck on one line, and then you got Cousins, Paterka, and Quinn on another
Mhm.
line, and then you got Middlestat, Greenway, and Benson, or whatever. You got all kinds of. I mean, who gives a fuck about the fourth line? You know what I mean? It's like you got either. It sounds sexy, man, and
Mhm.
it feels good. But you got
Yeah.
to get to that. You got to tread water right now. You got to stay in this. Figure out the goaltending. How you're
Mhm.
going to get Ryan Johnson more minutes, more ice time, and maybe Eric Johnson less. I don't know how they pull that off, but
Mhm.
it's just stay afloat right now. Things kind of seem messy. And last point, and I can't believe I'm saying this, and I apologize to my good friends at Imperial Pizza and all your South Buffalo fans. I kind of hope they don't sign Pat Kane, but I do think there's a good chance it happens.
It's
Kind of hope
yeah.
it doesn't happen.
It's not a non-zero possibility, and it's a lot higher than non-zero. I think
Oh,
I mean, it's certainly a possibility. I can't put a number on it just because I
if
don't know.
Vegas, you know how or in the NFL, there's odds for fucking everything. If
Mhm.
Vegas cared enough about hockey, do you think Buffalo, and maybe there is something out there,
There
like
might
Buffalo
be.
would Buffalo be the betting favorite right now? Do you think to sign Pat Kane this moment?
I don't know about the favorite, but they would be. I think they would be top three easy. I think it's them, Detroit, and Florida.
Florida.
I think those are the top three. Maybe the Rangers still on the mix, possibly. I know some people try to kick around Toronto, but I just have it very hard, find it very hard to believe that A, they can afford him, B, that Pat would want to go there. Just, the Buffalo kid going to join the Leafs. And if he was the piece that put him over the top, like, sure, you become a legend in Toronto, but then you become universally hated in your hometown.
Yeah,
But,
yeah, for sure,
it's the
man.
trade-offs, but it's but no, I think they would certainly be one of the favorites right now. Just, I mean, before it was just based around the hometown part of it, but I know you hear things and you hear things from people, and you kind of take a look at the situation. You're just kind of like, all right, this is something to keep a draft in the folders ready in case it happens.
Yeah, I realize I'm laughing because every time I have you on, especially when it's been a while, when we used to be able to have time, before you started covering the Sabres again full time, and you'd be on all the time, it
Mhm.
would be like whatever. But now it's like I'm telling you, it'll be 45 minutes to an hour. Then I get you on because it's so much less frequently, and then
Right.
they always end up going longer because I can't stop thinking of things that I want to bring up to talk with you about. Last
Mhm.
thing, and I'm sure. Listen, you've been coming on this show, and I know this isn't our first Thanksgiving week that
Right.
we've talked on this podcast. But to be quite honest with you, dude, I can't remember fucking a year ago or 2 years ago. So I don't know if I've asked you this or not before, but the Lions play every Thanksgiving, obviously,
Yeah.
and you are, for the few people out there who don't know this, Joe is a big, lifelong, pretty much Detroit Lions fan. Do
Mhm.
you like? Do you enjoy the Detroit Lions playing on Thanksgiving itself? Like their success or their failure, how much of an effect does that have on your overall day, regardless of where you're eating or who you're eating with? Your team playing on Thanksgiving, that you have a fan
Mhm.
emotional, at least to some extent, you certainly have an emotional connection, to how that team plays. If
Yeah.
you had your way, would you have your team playing on Thanksgiving? My answer is cut and dry. There's not even a thought. Fuck that. Because seriously, the last couple of years, man, fucking Von Miller tore his ACL last year on Thanksgiving.
In
Trey White
Detroit.
did 2 years ago on Thanksgiving. I don't never want to see the Bills play again on Thanksgiving. But yours is a tradition, man. That's, as long as you've been around, the Lions have been playing on Thanksgiving. So
I used to be in the I don't really care camp until people started coming out of the woodwork to be like, get this team off of Thanksgiving. They don't deserve to be on there. I'm like,
there are a lot of that.
They've been on there every Thursday since the 50s. Like at 12:30, the Lions are playing somebody and they're probably getting their heads kicked in by somebody else. Every year on like as soon as Santa Claus goes past Macy's, you can flip over to some other station and there's the Lions like getting their tails kicked in or whatever. Or, Steelers fans remembering it for Jerome Bettis mumbling the heads or tails call in overtime and what's his nuts, the referee mishearing it or whatever the hell. And then like Detroit ended up beating Pittsburgh in overtime. Steelers fans still get mad about it, probably because they show that clip every year on Thanksgiving. So Steelers fans just immediately are just pissed off about Detroit and Thanksgiving. But no, man, like people like comfort food, right? The Lions being like the shitty appetizer on Thanksgiving is like the best comfort food possible, because if you're a fan of the team, you're like, hey, maybe they'll win this year. They probably won't, but the game's on. So like, let's get dinner ready. And, I don't know, man, it's such a great day for football that like the Cowboys immediately tried to horn in on the action, and then networks were like, yeah, no, this is good, let's keep the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Like they jumped in on the Lions action because they're like, well, no, we're a better team, we're America's team, we got to play on Thanksgiving, so put us on the other game. Like, fuck you, get out of here. Your own holiday, you creeps. But no, like, leave it alone, man. Like, there are so few traditions left in sports, like anywhere. Like, it's all made for TV, it's all ratings bullshit.
Sure.
Like, whatever. Leave the fucking Lions alone. Leave them alone on Thanksgiving. Like, you've already crammed in 2 more NFL games on Thanksgiving as it is, right? Like they do like an 8:30 now. Aren't they doing like a 10 o'clock game now too, or something?
Yeah, well, they got 3. They got Detroit and Dallas is every year, and then they have a rotating
third game so that they get to eat their.
I got the NFL Network or some shit like that.
Right. So I hate Thursday games in general, but like this is already Detroit's 3rd Thursday game of the year. The first 2 weeks of the season they played on Thursday, or two of the first 3 weeks they played Thursday night. Now they're playing Thanksgiving. Like, whatever, man. Like, if the Lions want to own Thursday, let them own Thursday. Just keep scheduling that for that. Like, it's fine.
You got Green Bay and Detroit, and then you got Washington at Dallas, which is going to be boring. And then you got Seattle and Frisco, which, who knows what kind of game you're going to get. All right, we're going to end this. You know what? And because you're a big Yankees fan, I don't think you've watched this yet, because I know you've been busy. There's a documentary on Netflix. I might have DM'd you. I can't remember.
Oh, but the Yogi one.
The Yogi one. If you had a chance to watch it,
I haven't watched it yet. No.
You gotta watch it, dude.
I know.
You gotta watch it. The director, his name's Sean Mullins. He directed the documentary. He's gonna be on the show at the end of the month.
Oh,
and
nice.
I'm gonna be talking to him about. I don't want to give anything away, so I don't want to tell you anything about the documentary or anybody who's watching or listening. But man, the list of talking heads that he had for that, his son, his granddaughter, Maddie Lee, Joe Turry, Derek Jeter. I go on and on. It's unbelievable. And it's emotional. If you're a Yankees fan and you're emotionally invested in the team, you might want to have a couple tissues with you, man. I'm telling you, the end of it was unbelievable. The end of, Yogi's life and the David Cohn perfect game on Yogi Berra Day. Just so unbelievably sentimental moments. Just a great story. Everyone out there, if you haven't seen it yet, it's called It Ain't Over Till It's Over or something like that. I don't even know the exact title off the top of my head, but it's on Netflix. Gotta watch that shit, man. Might have to bring you in for that episode because I'm taping with him on StreamYard.
Okay.
I'm sure you can come up after you watch. You'll watch if you watch the documentary beforehand. I'm sure you can come up with a couple interesting questions to
no doubt
to talk with this guy about. But anyway, we'll get to that. That's at the end of the month. Make sure you follow Joe on Twitter at Joe Yerdon. Check out Noted Hockey again. $5 a month. Stop being cheap fucks out there, man. It's a great deal. $5 a month. You can't go wrong if you're a hockey fan. I mean, come on. Check out Main Estate Podcasts, Joe and Lance, almost every week, whenever they get a chance. Sometimes the schedules conflict, but for the most part, weekly podcast, in my opinion, by far the best Sabres podcast out there. Good to have you, buddy, man. It's fun to have you every now and then. I know you, like I said, you're busier covering the team, having a good time, but
Yeah.
appreciate you, man. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you too. You too. It's always a treat to be on here, and it's always good talking to you. 45 minutes or an hour and a half, it doesn't matter to me, man. It's always good.
Well, it's an hour and a half too, but anyway, it won't be an hour and a half tomorrow because I'm doing a solo episode, my weekly film and PFF grades analysis from the Bills victory over the Jets. That'll be on tomorrow's show. Talk to you guys then.